I always thought I had a pretty solid life. Married young, settled down quickly, built a routine that looked perfect from the outside. We weren't flashy, but we had stability. Shared bank accounts, quiet evenings, occasional date nights when we remembered. I wasn't unhappy, not really. Just comfortable. Maybe too comfortable. My spouse, Mark, had become distant over the past year. Nothing dramatic. Just more meetings, late work calls, forgetting little things like the way I took my coffee or that I hated mushrooms on pizza. I chalked it up to stress. Then came the neighbor. His name was Daniel. He moved in 3 houses down and started showing up around the same time Mark got even more detached. First, it was nothing. He was polite, warm in a way that made you feel like you mattered when you spoke. I was bringing in groceries one afternoon, and a bag tore. Apples rolled down the sidewalk, and before I could bend down, Daniel was already helping me collect them. He laughed, called it a grocery escape, and handed me the last apple like it was something valuable. I laughed too. Genuinely, for the first time in weeks. That moment stuck with me. I didn't think much of it, not consciously. But I found myself noticing him more. Not in a fantasy way, just in how he always had time to smile, how he asked how my day was and actually listened. I'd wave from the driveway, and he'd wave back with that same calm, present energy. Mark never waved anymore. Sometimes he didn't even notice when I left or came home. One evening, I waited 2 hours past dinner for Mark. No text, no call. When he finally came through the door, he looked surprised that I'd made dinner at all. Said he'd already eaten. I sat at the table alone after he went to take a call in the other room, and I stared at his untouched plate like it was proof of something I couldn't name yet. The loneliness wasn't loud. It crept in slowly. Missed kisses, absent glances, silent car rides. I started walking in the evenings, not for exercise, just to be out. Daniel was always on his porch, reading or tinkering with something. He'd say hi, sometimes offer a drink, but I always declined. Still, I found myself walking a little slower near his house. Maybe hoping for a little kindness. Maybe hoping someone would just see me. I didn't think it was wrong. I wasn't flirting. I wasn't trying to replace Mark. I was just tired. Tired of being invisible in my own life. Daniel, in the simplest ways, made me feel like I still existed. Like I hadn't disappeared behind a ring and a fading routine. I told myself it didn't mean anything. I told myself I was still loyal. But part of me was starting to wonder if loyalty was supposed to feel so lonely. It wasn't long before the unease became impossible to ignore. Mark was no longer just distracted. He was absent. His phone never left his hand, always face down when he set it on the table. He started showering as soon as he got home, sometimes twice a day. Passwords changed. Notifications hidden. I wasn't looking to catch him in anything, but the truth started revealing itself anyway. One night he said he was working late. I believed him until I saw a location ping on our shared calendar from months ago. An old habit from when we coordinated schedules. It showed a restaurant reservation across town for 2. That same night. When he returned home past midnight, clothes freshly changed, breath minty, I didn't confront him. I just stared as he walked past me like I was furniture. I started withdrawing. I wasn't interested in fighting over lies. I wanted to see how far it would go. And it went far. Secret calls, laughter in the other room, silent dinners. At one point, he started sleeping in the guest room without explanation. Claimed it was for his back. We both knew it wasn't. I was unraveling inside, but kept the front together. Smiled at neighbors, worked my shifts, even cooked when I didn't need to. But I felt hollow, like I was watching someone else live my life. It was during this phase that Daniel became more present. I didn't invite him into my problems, but somehow he saw them anyway. His kindness didn't feel forced, it was just there, waiting for me to notice. One afternoon, I was sitting on my porch trying not to cry after checking Mark's phone. He'd left it unlocked by mistake. The messages were there. Her name was Julia. The tone was casual, intimate. They weren't hiding anything from each other. Just from me. I didn't take screenshots. Didn't yell or throw anything. I just sat there. stunned by how easily someone I trusted could become a stranger. Daniel saw me. He didn't pry. Just walked up slowly and asked if I was okay. I couldn't speak. He sat beside me, didn't say a word. After a while, he asked if I wanted tea. I followed him without thinking. His place smelled like cedar and something warm I couldn't name. He poured a cup and we sat there quietly. Eventually, the words came out. Not everything, just enough. He listened like my pain mattered. He didn't try to fix anything, didn't offer advice. He just let me be angry, be tired, be real. I hadn't felt that safe in a long time. That night, when I got back home, I saw Mark asleep on the couch with his phone tucked beneath him. I didn't even feel angry anymore. Just done. Something in me had shifted. I no longer needed proof. I had lived the proof. And the only person who seemed to care that I was breaking wasn't the man I married. It was the man next door. I didn't plan on anything happening. That night I just needed space. Mark had left for the weekend, claiming it was a work retreat. He didn't even ask if I wanted to come. I didn't argue. I let him go, packed his things myself, and closed the door behind him without a word. The silence in the house was unbearable. Everything echoed. His absence, my denial, the final confirmation that we were done long before I ever admitted it. I texted Daniel. It was simple, just a thank you for the other day. He replied almost instantly, said he was around if I needed to talk. I didn't want to be alone, so I went over. There was no plan, no intention. Just two people who'd been circling each other with unspoken truths. We talked for hours. About nothing, about everything. About trust, heartbreak, pretending to be okay when you're drowning inside. I didn't tell him all the details, but I didn't have to. He understood. Somewhere in between shared silences and careful words, the tension started to change. It wasn't dramatic. It was quiet, heavy, natural. He touched my hand, and I didn't pull away. It was one of those moments where time slows down. You know it's a line, and you know once you cross it you can't go back. But I didn't care anymore. I was tired of holding everything in. Tired of being faithful to someone who'd already chosen someone else. Tired of being alone in a marriage that had become a performance. The first kiss wasn't desperate. It was gentle, almost hesitant, like we both knew what it meant. And still we didn't stop. I told myself it was a mistake even as I leaned in. I told myself it was just comfort, just a moment. But it wasn't. It was real in a way I hadn't felt in years. When it was over, we didn't speak for a while. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, unsure whether I felt relief or regret. Maybe both. But I didn't feel dirty. I didn't feel like I'd cheated. Felt seen. Wanted. Held in a way that wasn't just physical. It was like all the weight I'd been carrying finally had somewhere to go. He didn't ask me what came next. He just said he hoped I'd sleep better. I stayed for a little while longer, then left. The walk home was quiet, but my mind was racing. I had crossed the line I swore I never would. But instead of shame, I felt something closer to clarity. What happened wasn't about revenge. It wasn't about getting even. It was about realizing what I'd been missing for too long. Connection, truth, warmth. I didn't know what it meant for tomorrow. I didn't think about the consequences yet. I just knew that for the first time in a long time I felt alive. And maybe, just maybe, I deserved that much. The next morning I woke up with a weight in my chest. Not from guilt, but from clarity. Everything was suddenly sharp. I didn't want to lie to myself anymore. I didn't want to pretend that what Mark and I had could be saved. Whatever we'd once shared was already gone. Eroded by neglect, dishonesty, and silence. Last night didn't ruin my marriage. It just confirmed it was already over. Mark came back that evening. He walked in like nothing had happened, tossed his bag down, asked what was for dinner. I didn't answer. I watched him move through the house like a stranger who happened to know where we kept the silverware. He looked at me once, but didn't notice anything different. That said everything. No questions, no curiosity. If he sensed something, he didn't care enough to ask. I didn't tell him what I'd done. There was no point. He'd made his choices. So had I. I didn't need to confess. I needed to move on. Daniel didn't text the next day. I appreciated that. He wasn't trying to insert himself into my decisions. He gave me space. When I finally messaged him a thank you, just that, he replied simply, saying he was around if I ever needed anything. No pressure. No expectations. That meant more to me than anything else. I started packing a week later. Not everything. Just enough. Mark asked where I was going and I told him I needed space. I didn't yell. I didn't accuse. I didn't list all the ways he'd let our marriage rot. He stood there, confused but not surprised. Maybe he expected it. Maybe part of him was relieved. We both knew the version of us we were trying to hold on to no longer existed. There was no dramatic goodbye. No begging. Just a quiet acknowledgement that something had died long before either of us admitted it. I didn't cry. I'd already done that too many times alone in silence, while he texted someone else in the next room. As I closed the door behind me, I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel broken. Felt free. Not because I'd found someone new, but because I finally let go of someone who had stopped choosing me long ago. What happened with Daniel wasn't something I planned, but it reminded me that I could still feel something real. That I was still capable of being wanted, of being understood. I don't know what comes next. I don't know if Daniel and I will ever be anything more. That's not what this was about. This was about waking up. About refusing to stay numb. About walking away before I lost the last parts of myself trying to save something that wasn't even mine anymore. For the first time in years, I'm choosing myself. No apologies. No explanations. Just freedom. And that, I've learned, is more honest than any vow that's been broken.